Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking here in my bedroom in the great state of Kansas. And today we are talking about the year 1974 in music and what happened this year. What were the big albums that happened, best-selling albums, albums that won awards, things that we talk about today about happening this year, and also some of the major kind of events and the debuting bands and all that. We already did a top 10 albums in 1974 3 weeks ago. In fact, yesterday we did our top 10 albums in 1975. So I'm kind of behind trying to catch up with this years in music. Anyway, so first starting with the top 10 best-selling albums of this year. Number one went to Greatest Hits by Elton John. So a Greatest Hits album by Elton John already at this point, and he's not nearly done, but yet we do have some pretty significant albums at this point, but yet he still is on a big run at this point in his career where he's just been out number one album after number one album. So it seems a little early for a Greatest Hits album, almost for Elton John. Let's wait till like the 80s maybe to put that together. But still, obviously, he's incredibly, that's why it's number one. I mean, he's incredibly popular after putting out, Madman Across the Water and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Honky Chateau, and then this year, I believe, it's Caribou coming out. And some other ones. Anyway, so he's doing very, very well at this point. I do have a Greatest Hits album of his. I don't know if it's this one. I forget what I have. But anyway, number two, we have Santana's Greatest Hits. Interesting enough. So Santana, his Greatest Hits album, hits number two at this point. I don't follow Santana's career that much. I'm not a huge fan of his because just more Latino style that I'm not into as much. And great guitar player, though. Then number three, we have So Far by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, which again is a kind of compilation album, greatest hits album. And I do own that on vinyl, actually. And it is a great compilation album. It's basically just the greatest hits of Crosby, Stills, Nash album and Deja Vu album. So it's only really two albums that they're collecting, but those two albums have pretty much all the big hits on it. I mean, by far all their big hits are on those two albums. They do have some other good albums coming out, like Crosby, or CSN and Daylight Again, are two other good albums there. I don't know when they come out a little bit later, because at this point they kind of have broken up as a group, I think, and they kind of went their own ways, doing their own solo projects. Sometimes they do, duets, duos, and all that. But man, it's an amazing album because you got Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, Helplessly Hoping, so like that. I think even Guinevere is on there, Wooden Ships, and then you got even Ohio, which was a single. They actually have Ohio on there, which is really awesome because Ohio wasn't on either album. It came out during Deja Vu album. So it's great. You got Ohio on there, which is one of my favorite of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. I know you got like Carry On, maybe he's on there. I can't remember now. I forget, but I know it's a lot of their best stuff. Deja Vu's on there, I think. Our House, Teach Your Children, Woodstock. I mean, it's just one incredible hit after another. I can't say enough. It's one of my favorite great compilation albums I have. Number four, we have Bad Company by Bad Company. So their debut album, I'm guessing this must be, their debut band this year. Must have their big hit on it. I know they have, one of their hits is Bad Company. And so it's funny, it's like the song Bad Company by the Bad Company on the album Bad Company. So it's funny, one of those things that happens. But yeah, Bad Company starting off very strong here. I know I've heard the album. It didn't make it into my top 10, but I know they have a couple of really great hits on there. Number five, we have his 12 greatest hits by Neil Diamond. So we have a Neil Diamond greatest hits album. That sounds like that might be good, but I don't know enough about Neil Diamond to know what's on that or what he's done so far at this point. Obviously, he's a hit maker, great songwriter, great voice, so be interested in hearing that. Number six, we have Skeletons from the Closet, Best of the Grateful Dead. So another, most of these are greatest hits albums. Obviously, they're selling very well. Grateful Dead, I don't even know if they have a hit, one hit, let alone enough to make a whole album out of. I don't like any Grateful Dead stuff, so I don't get why they have a greatest hits album. Number seven, we have Not Fragile by the Bachman Turner Overdrive. I probably heard this album, but I don't remember much about it. Didn't make it my top 10 of the year. I know they have that You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, I think is their big song. Maybe it's on this album, and that's why it was a big seller maybe this year. But besides that, I don't know much about Bachman Turner Overdrive. Number 8, I'm happy to say we have Back Home Again by John Denver, which was my favorite album of 1974, just to spoil my list. Amazing John Denver album. I love John Denver's albums in this period of time. It's so good. His 70s output, absolutely incredible, and this is definitely one of his best that he's put out anyways, with Annie's Song, and it's one of his big ones on there. Back Home Again, of course, was a big hit as well. And he has like Thank God I'm a Country Boy, which is kind of a hit of his. But yeah, really good album there. Glad to see it in the top 10. Number 9, we get Wings by Aerosmith, which I thought was a little surprising. I didn't know that that was that big of an album, but Aerosmith evidently was doing pretty well. I think this might be their second album, because the first album I think was just called Aerosmith. And I'm not a fan of these early Aerosmith albums. Not Toys of the Attic, I don't even like that much, but at least it has like 2 really good songs on it. First album, of course, has Dream On, which is the best early period song for sure. But yeah, Aerosmith there. And then finish out the top 10. At number 10, we have Endless Summer by the Beach Boys. So obviously another compilation album by the Beach Boys, which from what I understand, they have a bunch of compilation albums. I just have one, like the Summer of the Beach Boys or something like that. It's really nice, double disc, whatever. Album anyways, but yeah, I know they did quite a bit of, they have so many huge hits, I mean, so they were able to make a lot of money probably off of these compilation albums, just enough because of all the big hits they had in the 60s period. So we're talking about the 70s where they're still making albums, but they're not as big, I think, as their 60s output. But anyways, that's the 10 best-selling albums in 1974. That's what everybody was liking and everybody was buying at this point. So I'll go to what got nominated and what won Grammy Album of the Year. The winner is Fulfillingness First Finale. It's such a weird title. I can't. It's weird. It's not one by Stevie Wonder, by the way. It's one that nobody really talks about as much as his, like, you know, his big one being Inner Visions and Songs in the Key of Life. Seem to be the 2 big ones I always hear about Stevie Wonder. But yeah, this one also, Stevie Wonder's on fire here in the 70s, this early 70s, mid 70s period. Because this is his second win in a row for Grammy Album of the Year. He won the year before for Inner Visions, which I know is like one of his top ones. But yeah, winning with this one. And he has such a crazy run we'll talk about, I guess, later in the next couple of years. But he wins a third one, not next year, but the year after. He comes out with a third one, I think it's Songs Key Life. So he wins 3 out of 4 years. One of the most incredible runs of albums as far as Grammy's concerned that we've ever seen anyways. I'm not a fan of Stevie Wonder personally. I don't like this period. I don't care for the funk and the R&B kind of stuff that he does here, but very popular if you like Stevie Wonder. Back Home Again by John Denver did get nominated, so I'm very happy to say my favorite album of the year did get nominated this year. Band on the Run by Paul McCartney and Wings was nominated, which was interesting because it came out in 73, but for some reason, the way the voting happens, maybe it happened later in 73, and so it didn't get nominated for Grammy Album of the Year until 74, which, if you know, that was my favorite album. So my favorite album is 73, which is Band on the Run, and my favorite album of 74, which is Back Home Again. So my back-to-back best favorite albums are nominated this year. So I'm happy to say that Grammy and me are agreeing quite a bit on all of this. Caribou by Elton John, another big album for Elton John. Was in the top 10 greatest hits, or not top 10 best-selling albums, but his greatest hits did get number 1 this year, so he's doing very well in both categories. This did make my top 10 favorite albums of 74. Though it's not one of my favorite Elton John albums, and I do own that, and I own this on vinyl as well. It does have some good stuff on it. And then the last one is Court and Spark by Joni Mitchell, which was a decent album. It missed out in my top 10. It was an honorable mention, though. But I know a lot of people love this album, Joni Mitchell. It's not one of my favorite of hers. I prefer like Blue and Clouds and Ladies of the Canyon. I like more. It's an okay album, though. It doesn't have any big hits on it that I can remember that I remember the album too much by. But still not a bad album. I would say overall, this is a really good year for Grammys. They really nailed a lot of the best albums here, even though they took an album from 73. They're Band on the Run anyways. But, I mean, Band on the Run, Back Home Again, I love those 2 albums so much. So it's really cool those 2 got nominated here. So I'm very happy about that. Stevie Wonder winning, I mean, I don't care for that album. But Stevie Wonder was very popular, so I'm not going to say it's like a terrible choice here. again, lots of people love Stevie Wonder, so I guess I shouldn't be too mad, except he already won before, so why can't we give it to Paul McCartney? Paul McCartney's never won Album of the Year, and he's one of the greatest. He's my favorite solo artist of all time. He deserved the win here, to be honest. Of course, and I love Band on the Run. It's my fourth favorite album of all time. So to me, if I was redo the Grammys, I would say Band on the Run definitely should have won Album of the Year. I mean, if not that, Back Home Again was a great album by John Denver. I would love to see John Denver get a win here as well. I mean, even though John never won Grammy Album of the Year, and he's got nominated probably plenty of times, I'm sure. And he's putting out really good stuff. So it's kind of weird, all these really great people not get in there. Steve Wonder gets 3 of them. Can't he spread the wealth a little bit and someone else win one of these years? And this would be the year to beat him, because this isn't as popular as Intervisions or Songs in the Key of Life. But anyways, overall, really good job. The Grammys are making really good choices here for one of the few times. A lot of times the choices are so off, and like, why did they pick that person, that album, when you have all these other great albums coming out in the year. The ones that I'd say is missing is like On the Border. I think it's a great album by Eagles. Could have got a nomination for me anyways. If I'm looking at my top 10, I'm trying to think what else was in there. On the Border was like number 2 on my list. Of course, Queen put out Sugar Heart Attack and Queen 2, which are, I don't know how popular they were then. Amongst Queen fans, they're very popular albums today. Yeah, again, it was a kind of a weak year, though. It wasn't my favorite year of music, so it's hard to really pick what should have won out of this year. But anyways. All right, let's talk about what big events happened this year in 1974. We're going to start off with January 3rd. Bob Dylan goes on tour for the first time since 1966. Yeah, he stopped touring in 1966. I believe it's because he had a motorcycle accident and almost died. And so he was recovering from the motorcycle accident, so he didn't play live for a very long time, all the way to 1974. He was putting out albums still. He was putting out lots of albums, but just wasn't feeling good enough maybe, or didn't want to go do anything live. So it must have been a big deal at this point, if you like Bob Dylan, that you finally get to see him live again for 8 years or whatever. He hasn't been doing anything live. February 19th, the first American Music Awards are on ABC, so first time we get that award show. February 20th, Cher files for divorce on Sonny Bono. No more Sonny and Cher, one of the great duos of the 60s period, one of the most well-known. They even had their own really popular variety show during this time period, the 70s time period. But one of their albums I do like actually quite a bit, but some of the other stuff's not so good, mostly because of Bono. Bono's not a very good singer. Cher is great, though. I always thought she was a really good singer, and she would go on to have a pretty good solo career after this. So she would go on to better things. She ended up marrying Dwayne Allman, I think, of the Allman Brothers. So we're going to see that here pretty soon. I think next year she gets married, actually, to Dwayne Allman. But yeah, so sorry to see that duo finally go away. Of course, I know Sonny Bono, I don't think, was necessarily faithful husband either. So I'm sure there's a lot of problems, as there always is in the entertainment industry. Let's see. March 12th, John Lennon and Harry Nilsson are kicked out of the Troubadour while heckling Tommy Smothers. Yeah, kind of a famous story. Harry Nilsson and John Lennon were really good friends, and used to hang out a lot, and they would get drunk. They got to the clubs with that and get drunk and all this and cause problems. And yeah, this is kind of a famous time when they were drunk and heckling Tommy Smothers of the Smothers Brothers, who had a very popular show at that time. And yeah, got kicked out of the show. So John Lennon's not going through a really great time. He also kind of, I don't know if this is the time period he kind of splits up with Yoko, and he's kind of dating his assistant at this, maybe during this time period. I know it's around this time. So he's having marriage trouble. His solo career was doing good at first, but I think it's kind of going through a little bit of a slow period maybe at this time. I don't know. But he's definitely going through problems. April 6th, ABBA wins the Eurovision contest with the song Waterloo. So we're seeing In fact, I think it was, this year that Ring Ring, their first album came out, which barely missed my top 10. It was in my own mentions, and I really like that album. Actually, Ring Ring is actually a very catchy pop album by ABBA, and Waterloo is not even on that album, but that's right. Ringo made it into my top 10. His first album, or not first album, his third album, Ringo, was a really good album as well. So that barely made it in my top 10, beating out Ring Ring. But yeah, Waterloo, great song. I mean, super catchy. Waterloo, Waterloo, bum ba bum ba bum ba bum. So no surprise that won Eurovision, and ABBA is gonna become a big deal after this. Swedish band that will come up with some of the most catchiest pop tunes of the '70s period, and definitely will make on some of my lists and in my top 10 lists coming up. Almost made this year, barely missed out. July 29th, we have another. Every year, you have to have at least one legend dying, which is, unfortunate, of course, but a lot of this happens in this period. And this year, we got Cass Elliot, who dies of a heart attack at age 32, which, man, that is so young. I'm 42, so I'm 10 years older than Cass Elliot when she died at this point. This is my younger sister's 32, in fact. So, yeah, very tragic. Cass Elliot, of the Mamas and Papas, she was such a good singer. I think she was maybe the best singer out of that group, and maybe was the most talented out of that group. And I don't know if she had much of a solo career. I imagine she would have had a good solo career and all that. I know she was friends with everybody. She was one of those people that was friends with everybody in town in California, and all the other big names. So very sad to see her go away. August 16th, Ramones' first appearance on New York City's venue CBGB established them as a forefront of punk rock. So we're now seeing punk rock starting to get into the music industry. Again, the 70s, I mean, definitely seeing we're getting really into glam rock during this period. David Bowie and like T-Rex, I think, and I forget, Mop the Hoople, even Elton John, Queen is kind of doing glam rock. In fact, I said Sheer Heart Attack was to me like the glam rock album for Queen. I thought that definitely seemed more glam rock type, while Queen 2 seemed more prog rock. So they're kind of delving into prog rock, glam rock kind of period. David Bowie, of course, was super, super glam rock, as the others are. So definitely a big period for glam rock. You still got a lot of prog rock coming in this period. As far as rock and roll goes, I mean, you do got the not heavy metal, but hard rock with Black Sabbath, also around this time period. And so now we're getting punk rock. Ramones, kind of one of the first punk rock bands, I want to say, that kind of gets noticed, anyways, and then we're going to see a bunch more punk coming up. All right, October 5th, AC/DC play their first official show with Bon Scott. So we're talking about hard rock. Here comes AC/DC already this early. I know this is their Bon Scott period, which they do a lot of popular stuff, and then they become really popular 1980 when they switched, or when they had to get a new singer, and they do Back in Black, which is their most successful album of all time. But yeah, I'm not as familiar with the Bon Scott period, and I'm not a big AC/DC fan, to be honest. I kind of know their story from Australia and all that, and Highway to Hell is a big album, I think, for them during this time period. But this is their first show with Bon Scott, so we're just seeing the beginnings of AC/DC here in 1974. It'd be one of the pillars of hard rock, I would say. October 18th, Al Green is attacked by his girlfriend, Mary Woodson, with boiling grits, and then she commits suicide. Yeah, this is such a crazy story. I remember hearing Al Green talk about this actually on some talk show, which is, when he talked about it, I was like, what a crazy thing to happen to somebody. And it really changed his life. Al Green, very popular, soulful R&B singer. Great voice, Al Green. I'm not a big fan of his music necessarily, except for I'm so in love with you. That's a good song. Very smooth vocals. But, he had this girlfriend, and she went crazy. I mean, attacked him with boiling grits, he had to go to the hospital for, skin burns. I mean, it was a horrible ordeal for Al Green to have to recover from. And then she commits suicide too, which is, man, I mean, that's such a tragic, such a traumatic event. And it was at that point that he turned to God, I know, and became a Christian, and had more, that was more important to him. It wasn't at that time, but after this, totally changed and become more religious, I think. So that's good. And I know I'm sure he's passed away by now, but I know when I used to see him in interviews, he was very, religious talking, and seemed like a really nice guy, in fact. But yeah, what a crazy thing to happen to somebody. I mean, even if he was a jerk, or I don't know if he was cheating on her, or they were getting into a big fight, man, you don't attack somebody with boiling grits, for goodness sakes. November 28th, John Lennon joins Elton John on stage at the Madison Square Garden for 3 songs. I believe this is, here I said John Lennon's not having a very good year, it doesn't seem like, but here he has a really cool moment. And it's kind of crazy, this friendship that John Lennon and Elton John had. You didn't think they would, they seem like 2 different artists in some ways. But John Lennon, I remember he went and saw, I read his book, one of the Philip Norman book I own. And it's interesting there, he talks about, seeing Elton John and just being marveled at how he did these, how much stamina he had in a concert. He'd do handstands on like the piano, he would do costume changes, and he'd do like 3-hour shows, just incredible, like, athleticism, I guess. He was in really good shape, Elton John, and John Lennon was like, wow, I've never done anything like that. Never did a concert like that before, and I think he really marveled at Elton John that way. And I'm trying to think what happened. I know there's an interesting story behind this, where Elton John made a bet or something with John Lennon. I don't know if it was that a certain song would go number 1 or something like that, and John Lennon was like, no, that song won't go number 1, and then it went like number 1, and so Elton John won the bet, and so the consequence was that John Lennon had to sing 3 songs at Elton John concert. So that was a big moment, seeing John Lennon on stage with Elton John singing. I can't remember what 3 songs he sang, but 3 Beatles songs probably, or maybe just some solo stuff. Anyways, but yeah, I don't know. It's a cool story. And of course, Julian, is it Julian or Sean? Maybe Sean. Elton John's like Sean Lennon's godfather, or Julian, I can't remember. So there's a really cool friendship that's lasted there even after John Lennon's death. December 12th, Mick Taylor leaves the Rolling Stones after 6 years. Mick Taylor being one of their guitar players, along with Keith Richards, kind of was with them, I guess, from the beginning, maybe. Maybe I don't know when he joined. I don't remember much about Rolling Stones trivia, but Mick Taylor joins, and then we'll see Ronnie Wood join, I think, the next year, and he stayed with him, I think, till today. Ronnie Wood's still with him anyway. So, but yeah, saying goodbye to Mick Taylor. And the last bit of news of this year, Lindsay on December 31st, last New Year's Eve, basically. There it is. Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined Fleetwood Mac. This is a huge moment for Fleetwood Mac. I'm going to do a deep dive on them at some point. I've been doing a lot of research on them, and I've gone through all their albums before. And it's such an interesting story, Fleetwood Mac, starting with the blues period with, was it John Mayer? Not John Mayer. Something Mayer. Anyways, starting with, Peter Green, starting with this whole bluesy music, and then they changed more pop, and then Bob Welch joins, and they have this Bob Welch period of more poppier, but not super, didn't really have any super hits during that period either. Then Bob Welch leaves to do his own solo career, and so they were looking for a guitar player and songwriter and singer to take the place of Bob Welch. Mick Fleetwood was. And so he went to visit somebody, a music producer, I guess in California. And he said, hey, I know this guy, Lindsey Buckingham, and his girlfriend, Stevie Nicks. I just recorded an album for them, their first album of theirs called Buckingham Nicks, which I do own on. They finally put that out on vinyl. They hadn't put it out on CD or vinyl for a long time. They finally did this last year, I think. And so I do have that album on vinyl, the book, I think it's called Buckingham Nicks. Anyway, so he had him listen to this new album, and Mick Fleetwood really liked it. And I was like, Lindsey Buckingham really thought it would really be good to get into the band, to be, take the place of Bob Welch. of course, Lindsey Buckingham said, "I'll join as long as my girlfriend Stevie Nicks joins," which was like, yeah, fine. What a great, what a great recruitment, I mean, and they really made the band like the biggest that they ever were at that point. Really great. I mean, both Stevie Nicks and Buckingham, great songwriters, good singers, especially Nicks. I think it's an amazing singer. She's my favorite member of Fleetwood Mac, and she just now is joining Fleetwood Mac here after they started in the 60s, I guess, period. But and he added them with Christine McVie, who's already a really good songwriter and singer herself. You got 3 great voices, 3 great songwriters. I mean, that was, that really made the band what we know them to be. And they're going to go on this great run of albums, in my opinion, starting with the next year with the first album with Buckingham Nicks called Fleetwood Mac, the self-titled album. And I'll spoil them the list, but it made all 4 of our top 10 lists. Me and my 3 friends, we just did it yesterday, and we all agreed Fleetwood Mac was on there. And then the next year after that is going to be Rumors, and most likely at least 3 of us, if not all 4 of us, will have Rumors on our top 10. So, I mean, they're going to make some of the best albums, some of the best-selling albums coming up. And thanks a lot to this moment in time for Buckingham Nicks. Fleetwood, everything just fell into place. And Fleetwood Mac, I mean, if they never joined, I mean, Fleetwood Mac would not be known. We would not be talking about Fleetwood Mac like we are today as one of the great bands of the 70s, 80s period, with so many incredible hits, so many pop tunes. Anyway, so yeah, really cool story behind that. All right, so I have 3 major artists debuting this year, and I said Bad Company, which had the one of the best-selling albums of the year, actually. Kansas, actually a band that I've been doing a deep dive on. I've only done one part. I need to do the second part here pretty soon. But Kansas, which would have a lot of big hits in this 70s period, do their debut album this year. I think it's called Kansas, probably. They're prog rock really early on. And then also Rush, another big band that would get huge during this decade and next decade, even bigger, I think. But Rush, another kind of prog rock band coming in, and eventually will come up with some big giant hits and very well known. Kind of, I don't know if they're as well known as some of the other big bands this period, amongst casual fans, I should say. Against, of course, people that love music know them, but they definitely, I think, have gotten over time more thought of as one of the great bands of this period anyway. So yeah, some pretty good debut artists there, and that's all I got for 1974. So I hope you enjoyed kind of learning a little bit what happened this year in music and what were the big stuff that happened anyways. And tell me if anything I missed, or what was your favorite album of this year, 74. And also be sure to watch our live stream on our top 10 favorite albums of 74. Those are really fun to do anyways. And I'll be back to talk about 75 very soon. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking the video. Thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate it all. Hope you guys